Okay, get it started as I'm being mugged for cookies. Log. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I started the stream up and then realized I had to get dogs in as well. So, okay. So I'm just gonna get started. Modular-monolith. This is an interesting and thank you for the follow, Blative. Appreciate it. Okay. So yesterday I was working on migrations, and what I'm trying to do is I am trying to keep each module capable of doing everything itself. So if I pull everything out, I don't want it to have dependencies on any other component, right? So even though they're all rolling up into one API, right? So the intention is these modules would roll up into a single API, right? So add games module, use games API, right? They roll up into a single application, but if they were to be broken out as a service, they still need to be able to function. Now, I don't in any way, shape, or form feel that these are just gonna, these modules wouldn't just become microservices overnight, right? But it all does come into the discipline of the design, I suppose. Hi, Rumbling Geek. How you doing? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and focus my energy on making sure these modules are as independent as possible. So we start with the database. We were talking yesterday, right? Single database, many databases, many schemas in single database, etc. I don't think the schema versus many databases thing, different schemas versus databases thing is necessarily a bad thing. But and I don't even think that the database itself being, if everything was in the same database, as long as it's isolated, you're fine. The problem comes with a single database, and I was trying to think about this last night, how to describe this. If I'm building the modules, and I know that I'm starting with modules, right? This isn't an over-engineering reach, because if you're building an application for business, you know it's going to grow. You know it's going to, unless it's a tool, like a little tool, fine. You don't need to over-engineer it, right? But one afternoon, Mr. Jones. Morning, afternoon, Mr. Jones. What were you going to say then? But keeping things clean and tidy, and keeping things organized is going to be necessary if you're building any sort of reasonable application. And so I don't think it's over engineering to do this. It's funny, Milan, I'll say Milan, sorry, not Milan. Milan posted a just started watching the Aspire course on Dawn Train, and now I'm excited to try and add it into my current project. Nice. Yeah. You have to let me know what your thoughts are. I don't think I'm really using Aspire fully, but I am, again, Mojo and I oftentimes like go back and forth on this. And especially on the deployment side of things, I still don't feel that it's the right thing to do deployment with. I think it's a great developer tool, but it looks like they are heading more towards the whole, you know, and I hate it, right? The right click publish sort of behavior. I do not like the idea of publishing from within your development environment. What I was going to say there is Milan posted, don't start with, distributed systems, start with a modular monolith and figure it out. And it's great advice. I feel that that's probably a really solid way of trying to build a greenfield application. But you also have to keep discipline in your dependencies, in your components, because you can quickly start to become very dependent upon infrastructure and stuff, and that's something you got to keep in mind as you go. So many things to learn. I'm intrigued by the deployment part, given I use VPS rather than Azure. Yeah, I'd be interested. Lana, thank you very much for the raid. Welcome in. How are you doing? How was your stream? What were you doing today? Doing good. Doing good. Off to a the week's starting to get interesting. Right in Wednesday. Thank you for the follow, CJ. A good time spent a couple hours fixing expired certs from my log. Oh, certs. Nice. Cool. So, welcome in. So this project that I'm working on right now is a side project. Basically, my main project on stream is a product I've been building for product management and planning. It is on a little bit of a timeout right this second as I figure out the deployment piece. Deployment is definitely not my strong suit. And DevOps processes, CI/CD processes are something I do not keep an eye on, but I do realize that are challenging. So I've had some issues with there. So I'm just taking a few days of a break to let myself relax a little bit and get back into that space. So in the meantime, what I'm doing is I'm trying to build up just a simple application as a modular monolith to explore what that would mean or how I would approach a modular monolith. Not necessarily how it is done or whatever, just how would I approach it and what are the things I'm thinking of as I'm going through it. So that's what I'm currently doing. And yeah. So it's great to hear you talking about modular monolith because I'm going for maximum distributed at the start to be able to play with stuff quickly without having to spend the hours to get all the pieces put together. Nice. Yeah, so I'm kind of trying to, it's the first time I've ever really approached trying to do a modular monolith in this way. And I've seen other people do stuff and I've kind of paid some attention, but I've never really studied how people do it. Liquid Sky is obviously a highly distributed system. It is the distributed monolith, I suppose, with many moving pieces. Why won't that zoom in? And it has its pros and its cons, and a lot of it could be done in that manner, but I decided to start that as an experiment of could I do this sort of system versus, what is the right way to get an application up and running quickly, right? Whoa. It's a lot of movement. Modular in what sense? Code boundaries, just the same code running in different services with a traffic routing. Um, sorry, I'm just trying to get through that noise. What is this? I have no idea what's going on in terms of chat. Um, oh no, not again. Sorry, brain frazzled because bots. That's what I'm mentally trying to figure. Like auto bans have kicked in on some. Um, oh well, I guess we see and hope we don't. If it happens again, the stream's getting shut down because I can't deal with that right now. But anyway, so modular. So, in terms of the project I'm building right now, I'm just starting from exploration, right? I'm going from a let's just explore what it means to break these things up. I'm very much in the realm of I prefer to be organic about the discovery of the actual modules. Um, um, okay, cool. Um, is that a shout out of some form? I don't know. Either way, um, I have no idea what's going on there, but I'll move forward. So Liquid Sky is very much again. I'm a big fan of being able to move things around as I need and not necessarily just because I've got an area of code called planning that if I feel that something that I've moved into attachments feels wrong, moving it into planning or vice versa is necessary, or even creating new groupings of code. So really, to me, they are just organizational components that fit into a larger system, right? So modular monolith, uh, the design looks almost identical. Um, I appreciate it. Thank you. Welcome in. Um, I've been attacked by bots several times, like thousands of views, etc. So my view count not organically jumping is is something to be uh cautious of. That's all. I'm yeah. Morning, Doctor. How you doing? We'll try and figure that out. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's out of character. So um so yeah, what I'm doing here is I'm trying to explore how would I build this in a fashion where my modules all compose the API. So I have one API and have the modules broken down this way. So I've seen this a few ways, right? I've seen the code organized as directories underneath here so that the directories kind of have code isolation. Um, my fear there, and I said it a lot yesterday, my fear there is that it's very easy for someone to come in and incorrectly reference another namespace. Um, Stony, hello, how you doing? Good day. So, you know, I don't like that pattern because oh no. Steri's doing a good job. Uh, it's a bot. It's a bot that's been brought into the stream and I'm okay. Uh, no, TBD is not getting popular. TBD is getting spammed. Seribot's blocking a lot of it. Thank goodness. But it's just spam. No, it's still streaming stuff in there, right? So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll let Seri do its job. And yeah. But anyway, so my problem is my attention span, right? If that starts moving like up there, I can't help but divert. So that's what the problem is. So anyway, so I've seen it where the modules are organized underneath the API code, say, right? What I'm doing here is I'm building them out as separate projects, but this module is added into the program. So that when the API starts, it will pull in that module, and the program itself is exposed as one API, not many APIs. It's not distributed. It's not using that messaging. So I can identify my boundaries organically. I can build those things out and move them around as I need and compose the application. The one thing, again, you've got to be careful of if you're starting to design out a system is you've got to make sure that you're figuring out the rules, especially if you're not doing it ahead of time. Too much ahead of time planning creates over. I think too much ahead of time planning creates over engineering, right? Because you're going to end up planning what you think you need versus what you actually need. So I'm a big fan of discovery versus over planning. But you do need to have some idea of where you're heading. But that being said, keeping an eye on the actual design and keeping an eye on the challenges it poses is definitely something you've got to keep in mind as you go. So I'm tinkering right now with how do I do migrations. So we're using Aspire, and the recommended way of getting Aspire migrations to run is to create a service and start that service when you start Aspire. These aren't bots. They're my Discord fans. I'm not live on Twitch. I'm live on Discord right now. I picked one random person and told everyone on the server to pull up. Okay, I've not seen that done before. I'm afraid I got quite far, realized I was backed into a corner, rewrote the entire thing, axed a bunch of features, then refactored the crap out of the small system, and I'm now expanding again. Yeah. 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 It's an inorganic jump to a view account, and it's very hard to tell if people are just posting stuff. Like, yeah. Yeah. If people are posting random stuff, it's just not on theme for the stream, and it's challenging. So I appreciate it, but yeah. Yeah, when random stuff's posted. Yeah. But anyway, I got quite far, realized. Yeah. So again, with the way I'm trying to even Liquid Sky, right? The way I try and do it is I try and discover yeah, I mean, if it's not on topic for the tech stream, then I appreciate the view, but it's random text dumped in the chat is more distracting than anything else. Yeah, if you're gonna do that, then it's a really nice idea, but artificial views with no actual interest in the topic is challenging. And I don't have the attention span to cope with seeing the chat move all the time like that without context. So anyway, I appreciate real people, but real people posting random stuff because it isn't on uh is an interest in the actual stream topic is challenging. Uh and again, like I said, I've been raided by bots uh and attacked multiple times, so it's very hard to distinguish. Um and Seribots also triggering and banning. So thank you for the follow. So I usually think of migrations as DB schema changes. Are those what we're talking about, or more like data update jobs? So right now, schema changes, right? So what we started yesterday was the discussion of modules. Um, um, do you create a separate database? Do you create a separate schema? Do you put them all in one database to begin with, being that they're one application, right? How do we design those things? Because we got into, okay, we're going to set up, sorry, app host. One second. Nice. Nice to see some C# on Twitch that is not Unity Unreal related. Yeah, there's a lot of game dev. Yeah. Architecture playgrounds are fun. Are you Dockerized? Yes, I'm using a lot of Docker. It's probably best to show Liquid Sky as a better example of something that's a little larger. So Liquid Sky is my main project. It is a project management and planning tool. Prereqs, and has been built over the last year and a bit to be I don't want game tracking. Why would I want game tracking? Liquid Sky Client NG, this window. So project switch up, project Liquid Sky. So Liquid Sky again, it looks similar in terms of the way I'm laying it out, the way I'm designing the code. What I'm doing is I'm building out these components. I'm not referring to those modules deliberately to try and avoid them being considered a modular monolith. These are very distributed. They're using Kafka to distribute their data. The design here is one of using Kafka for state transfer. So I'm publishing information from within these modules so that other modules can pick them up and do what they need at the right time. So most of them publish the information and the view picks it up, right? So the view consolidates all the data from across all the different components and gives you a view that has a GraphQL API in front of it that the Angular client uses. So Liquid Sky has many projects. It is individual APIs behind a YARP gateway and an Angular front end. Thanks for the like, Mr. Jones. So we'll get that started up. Actually, no, that won't start. Tot service is up. I need to start some services, otherwise that's going to go very poorly. This is going to start crashing in a second, unless I beat it. Cool. Angular made me okay with JavaScript back in the day. I do Vue.js nowadays, but web components are cool. I am not someone who I would say is good on the front end side of things. I'm definitely happier when I'm trying to figure out how to grow on the messaging side of things. I definitely prefer the back end. Um, uh, I think there's people who are capable on the front end as well in the grouping, but um, it's primarily where I focus my energy because I do like doing solving back end problems more. I like trying to learn how to do different messaging, different different pieces there. I clip something and realizing the timing is completely off is a pain. It is that. Sorry, I have a set of scripts to bring up all the Docker pieces that I don't want to manage inside of here, all the infrastructure components. So I'm using Kafka as the main backbone of the application for Liquid Sky. I'm using SQL Server, MongoDB, Redis, all these different pieces to distribute the load. The way it's designed, though, it looks similar, but these are individual applications. And again, to that point of feeling comfortable moving things around, if I feel something doesn't quite fit in one of these pieces, or I feel these modules don't necessarily align with the way things are, I'm happy to change them and I'm comfortable changing them. And I have done on many occasions, changed these things around, consolidated them, deleted them, etc. Backend is good. That's mostly what my SOA tool is about. I need to get Kafka support integrated, but I can't quite grok the usage model. I feel that Kafka is one that is it's a technology that can be used in a multitude of ways. Some people use it as a service bus. Hi Harish. Um, please don't spam just random stuff in the chat. If you are not a bot, please don't just spam random stuff. It isn't helpful to the flow of the chat. How you doing, Harish? So basically, again, I'm using Kafka for state transfer. So the information that so the planning component itself would be responsible for organizing a planning item or or a requirement, etc. Anything that's planning specifically related on the product management side is in the planning phase right now. This would probably be called product, but product is very generic and would miss it. Yeah. So what I did for this, by the way, is to try and abstract some of this behavior. Is and this is open source Kafka extensions. So what it is I created a library around Kafka to try and get some of these things smoothed out so that you can just inject an event publisher and you can set up the consumers here will receive them, and it uses the event type here to line up what topic it is. So it kind of sorts it out. I'm gonna get about to sleep. Some thoughts might stay there, but before I go, everyone drop the raid in the chat. CJ, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I do appreciate the intent. If it hasn't come across. Do you have a hotel integrate? So yeah, because of and this is where Aspire has definitely helped. The Aspire service defaults give you the ability to add in hotel pretty quickly. So if we go to debug, where are you? App host, console. If we go to why are you breaking? Why are you breaking? App host. Let's stop that one. Mojo, good morning. Um, let's see if that starts up now. So, because of the service defaults, because of Aspire post, assuming this will start up properly, um, if we go to the dashboard, it pulls all this in. So the dashboard then gives us uh, tracing metrics, etc., through OTel, so we can hook into OTel pretty quickly. Yeah. So as I grow, I can learn more about that. Mr. Anhorn, thank you for 69 months. Oof. That's impressive. Thank you. Appreciate it. Um, so yeah, so this is a library that I've built to support Liquid Sky, and I use this with an outbox. So basically, when a domain event occurs, in these things, the actual there's an actual outbox for the internal message, so that gets asynchronously processed, so everything's committed to the database first, then events fire in the domain, and then those domain events will trigger Kafka integration events, so they'll trigger publishing that information out. So I've secured the data, the client knows I've got the data, and it continues on. So yeah, so this is the current project. I was just demonstrating it. So because we were talking about how I'm distributing the yeah. Yeah. So Liquid Sky. Loading, loading, loading. And again, with Liquid Sky, every single one of those modules has its own database. Everything is independent. Everything is there's no migrations for this, by the way. This is all scripted out as well. But yeah, so the structure is the same in terms of the code structure because of the way I'm doing the design, right? So that's that. So we go on to switch up. Switch up is, again, looks similar. Yeah. Let's see if that logged in. Yeah, it did. Okay. Isn't that what this is? So recent changes. We got the dashboard ready, so that now highlights differences. The initiatives are there, and then the planning items. The planning items allow you to see all these things are brought from across the system. Um, uh, they're brought together into that GraphQL view, or into the view, and then exposed through a GraphQL API. So yeah, no single DB. But yeah, so I'm exploring the modular monolith while I take a break from deploying this thing. So deployment of these services is not my actual problem, by the way. The thing that I'm stuck on right now is my tooling for doing the deployment. Has let me down a little bit. It's actually the pieces I need to support all this that have gone wrong, not the actual deployment of the services. The service deployments went fine. It's the SQL Server in Kubernetes causing me the problem. Is figuring out how do I do those deployment things and what lessons do I need to learn to make sure that that's a robust and repeatable process. I brought down the Cloudflare gateway tunnel, and it wouldn't come back up. I brought down the SQL Server, and it said, I can't find the database. I brought it down again. It said, here's your database. I brought it down again. It said, I have no idea where this database is. So, so I was using Pulumi. I think the support for certain pieces in Pulumi is not good enough for what I need. I need something a little bit more resilient. Lessons learned from that. I do need to separate out my infrastructure components from my application because it was all one piece before. So if I brought down everything, um, um, and then try to bring it back up, it wouldn't all come up cleanly. Whereas if I'd have brought the infrastructure pieces out as their own deployment, they could have stayed up, been running happily because they were running happily, and then my application deployment wouldn't have caused the problems. So yeah, good thing the database isn't a critical part of the system, right? Yeah, I mean it's just a database. Yeah. Now my options are kind of I mean, yeah, containerized databases is probably not the way to go anyway, and um, for me specifically, but I do not have the hardware nor resources. I can't run multiple machines. If I run multiple machines with that AC unit on beside me and this PC running, I will trip the breaker because I do not have good electric supply in this house. So I have to be careful what I run. Uh, I don't have a closet to put stuff in. So yeah, I actually have been considering building a smaller, less power hungry dev machine because I don't need the resources I've got in this for what I'm doing if I can deploy things. So anyway, that's Liquid Sky. Liquid Sky again. What's depressing here is that this is kind of my favorite version so far. It's where I want it to be visually right this second. It does solve a lot of the challenges we've had. A lot of the feedback was implemented. Um, so yeah, um, it's cleaned up a lot. So I'm kind of a little bit more frustrated that I can't get this version deployed to the server right now. But yeah. So anyway, that's Liquid Sky. That's a distributed monolith. I think is the best term for that one. It's not, again, some people might say microservices architecture. I don't know if I necessarily align to these are microservices. These are mini application stacks. So I really feel this is um, um, a distributed monolith. Zen out Linux bots and stack VMs. Yes, I've got to, yeah, service oriented. Yeah, that's why. So, but anyway, that's Liquid Sky. And this again, I started this application because I wanted to flex some of the things I'd learned over years and build something that I could learn and grow with, right? People don't even know what microservices are. It's a very difficult. We use a lot of terms that we don't truly um, all get the grasp of, and we kind of use them interchangeably. So I do tend to try and avoid using buzzwords. Interestingly enough, by the way, we'll go back to Project Switch Up. I was saying this to Rambling Geek last night. I only posted an hour of yesterday's stream on YouTube, and yeah, it's doing the same thing again today. It has more more views in one day because it's a modular monolith than any video I've posted, any stream I've posted, or a video I've posted since April 15th, just because it had the words modular monolith in it. So yes. Just proof that the algorithms do look for things. If we didn't suspect that anyway. So anyway, back to Switch Up. I think microservices should be divided from domain-driven design. I'd be interested to see that implementation. How would you, as a thought exercise there, how would you break out your cab application as microservices implementation? How would you approach that? What makes it a monolith? All the code units compiled and linked together in binary? For scripting languages. I think monolith has negative connotations attached to it. I mean, realistically, it's sizable business application. It's just uh yeah. Yeah. Well, so uh, again, as far as I am concerned, I wish I had time this morning. I have opinions on microservices. There's always a Discord. And for anyone watching, if you have thoughts, opinions, questions on this stuff, you are more than welcome to join the Discord. We do hang out there in voice chat quite a few times a week. Some weeks busier than others, but we do hang out in there. And yeah, I mean, if you're interested, you're more than welcome to hang out in the Discord and share any conversations or opinions. Um, just post the opinion if you feel. Because my SRA does a monorepo, but it can be a bunch of different services. Right now, my biggest one is 3 Rails services, 3 databases, and an OTel stack. Collector, Jaeger, Prometheus, and Grafana. Yeah. Yeah. So Liquid Sky is, for the most part, a single repo. I will if I remember. um, oh my, I've got to remember to put, I don't know why it is not putting me in streamer mode automatically. I've got to figure that out. Um, I hear the bloop. I cannot avoid it. Example of the opposite where I have a monolith with many reports. OTel is a streaming thing for large requests. No, open telemetry, traces, etc. Yeah. So yeah, for the most part, Liquid Sky and its 90 projects, 86 projects are in one repo. Foundation is the shared kernel. That is its own repository. That is its own repository because the backend pieces of Liquid Sky do share. The control tower shares the eventing and stuff and a lot of the common behavior. So the shared library is its own repo. But for the most part, all of this is in one repo. So switch up. Switch up, switch up, switch up. I've still yet to learn how to effectively use traces, if I'm honest. I used to work at New Relic, so now I'm just a rage ball. New Relic. I brought my last place. I brought New Relic in for APM. Started off good, but the products got very fragmented, and like everything was pay for this, pay for that, pay for this, which became challenging to make the right arguments for everything. Because yeah, we use Datadog where I am now. But what I said, I've yet to learn how to use tracing properly, right? I'm a big believer in not putting log statements everywhere. I don't believe logs should be a common go-to. Um, um, I think we should be strategic about what we are logging, when we are logging it, and how we are deciphering that data and how we're using that data. I think all exceptions should just log. Yeah. I don't think it's helpful to turn on everything and get too much noise. My coworkers are like, we have to optimize, and I keep telling them we have no data. What do we optimize? I have opinions. I'm not going to share them on a stream. We are moving off New Relic. The cost is not worth it anymore. We are moving to a whole Grafana stack hosted in global cluster, working pretty well. Yeah. It's funny that self-hosting is becoming more feasible again than having it run as a service. The software as a service model is expensive. Um, yeah. So okay, what I'm tootling around with here is I'm trying to figure out what I want to do to run migrations. Right? There's no benefit in having, oh, add API in here. I don't want to get into that world where I have to go in and add and change the way that I execute the migrations from within here. The migration service should trigger the migration 100%. But what I want to do is put the responsibility of doing the migration into the module itself, right? So that's why I'm playing around with these interface thoughts. And again, all I'm doing here is writing code to think about how I want it to structure. I'm happy to delete the code. I'm happy to move the code around. But what I'm trying to do is keep the responsibility for understanding what it is inside of that module, right? So as the monolith is compiled, the module owns its configuration, its startup, even its dependency injection stuff. It owns that. It does not have the API. I do not want to have, oh, we need to add a repository. Okay, well, builder.services to add repository, right? Or blah, 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 as I can't type apparently. Grafana has a lot of parts, but once it's in place, it's really solid. And I apologize if the beam of light is down the middle of my face. I actually am trying to plan moving my room around so that I do not sit right in front of a window with sunlight beaming in my eyes. We get metrics, tracing, logging, user sessions all on a single dashboard. Nice. And I think, again, that entire thing, metrics, tracing, logging, etc., I still think it needs to be well thought out and well planned, because oftentimes it's just noise. And I've seen it multiple times where there's that much noise in the application because, developers are told log, 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 and all those logs feed out. And then what happens is you don't know a true exception from a program exception or like a planned exception or whatever you have. And it's not used effectively, which means that then you end up with too much noise and people ignore what they see because they can't tell the good from the bad. So I think it should be a strategy. So yeah, I'm trying to keep the ownership. Exception handling is the worst basic thing that people don't know what to do in modern software. You mean in terms of catch log is not exception handling? So my opinion on try catches, don't put it in, especially not in development. If there's a third party service that you have to handle, because it might change the behavior of your application call, yeah, try catch and handle it appropriately. Don't throw or just log, oh, this didn't work and move on, right? You should be handling that. But anything else, don't put preemptive try catches on things because it might not work, it might fail, it could throw an error, etc. Let it throw an error. Find it in development. Don't go randomly dotting your application with try catches. Like just because it's a database call doesn't mean if it fails, everything's going to crash and roll back anyway. So let it be. Yeah. They tried having a performance optimization conversation yesterday. The only data we have is SQL query performance. I don't think that speeding up our longest running query, 500 milliseconds, solve the problem of multiple minute page. No. You are right. You need data. You really need to understand where the problem is. Yeah. The AI generated always goes nuts with try catch. Oof. You mean you don't want to send a 400 into Yeah. I can rant about exceptions for days. Do not catch the base type. Do re-raise unless you handle the exception. Yeah. And I think, especially if you're building an application from scratch, establishing some of those practices, and again, strategic. Don't just do it randomly. Don't just have, well, what if, if this is saving, or what if it fails? Let's put a try catch around it and return an error rate there. Is yeah. We need brains. Brains, reasonable ways. So many opinions. Okay. So yeah, what I'm kind of contemplating here is this ability for this to say, okay, go and I'm still going to have to add this project in, right? I'm still going to have to add this migration to include it as part of it. But then once it's added, actually, okay. Well, what I was trying to think about is how do I do it in a standard pattern, not necessarily that, because hold on. We did if we do, and again, if you have opinions on what I'm doing, if you think that I am heading down a bad path here, if you feel that I am doing something you've not seen before and you want to ask more questions about, if you're new to the stream, that is all fine. Conversation in the stream about software, about technology, about design is perfectly acceptable. I do not need to get code done. I assume that some people are hanging out and doing their own thing, or just kind of watching, or it's just background noise. But I do want to make sure that's clear that I'm not doing this to tutorialize. I'm doing this to learn as well. So what I'm trying to get as far as the design goes right now is basically I want to say, well, let me do it this way. Let me do it my normal way, right? So I want to kind of say builder dot include well, I kind of want to do it like Aspire, actually. I kind of want to do something similar to this, right? Where I include that project. And then by virtue of including that project, I can then scan that for migrations. And then the migration would run itself. That's kind of what I'm looking for, right? So basically the code, I'm going to cheat a little bit here because it's useful. So there's two projects I normally work on stream. One of them is Liquid Sky, TBD Friends. The other is developers.stream. Developers. There we go. This does have in it the service idea. So, oh, by the way, this is because I'm doing Switch Up as a tinkering project, as a side project. I'm going with my normal standard for naming things. I actually have gone through and renamed the namespaces and stuff. So the DLLs that are produced from this will all have the namespaces. The namespaces of the actual files will look correct. However, the actual project names are this way. It's because I don't like seeing this. This is what I dislike the most. Is like this common I think it's harder to scan, whereas the modules stick out as they are. So that's personal preference. You can name the project whatever you want to name the project, right? It doesn't have to be the same name as the namespace. So that's what I'm relying upon here. I can name the project file, and the folder that it sits in will be called games. it's all switch up. Why do I need to keep repeating the same words, right? I followed this pattern with developers.stream because it is intended to be here's an application. Here's how other people will do an application. .NET projects will oftentimes have this sort of structure. Although I am seeing that less and less these days. But it still happens. Okay, so program. So this right now is the migration stuff. This adds PG SQL. It does a seed. Again, that seeding is not something I want the responsibility of the service. And then the actual worker runs the migrations. And it's this piece here that I don't want to keep doing for every single thing. It's your brain metrics. The scaffolding tool for that. So yeah, so I'm trying to avoid this where I want that piece to be owned. Probably should. No, I'll leave Liquid Sky open. It's fine. That piece I want to be kind of owned by the game's infrastructure, so that the game's infrastructure knows what running the migration looks like. But I need a standard there, so I'm kind of thinking about how do I design that in a way that basically I want to say include games migrate infrastructure. Right. I know that uses code generation in Aspire, so I'm not going to chase that right this second. And by doing that, it will include the right, the right pieces. For then in here to get a list of migrations available and just execute them on startup. So it would loop through and do this. Because in developers.stream, we have two migrations, right? We have the auth and the standard. They are actually stored in one migrations library, so it's kind of all joined. I'm just trying to flip it a little bit. I can't wait to have metrics in the product. It can drive so much for product development, marketing, etc. Useful metrics, though. You got to make that strategy. You got to figure out what to do to avoid the noise. Like, what does that look like? Number of things added, number of I'm sure it's fine. Just put a task in Jira. I'm sure it'll be followed to the letter. It's where I can verify my identity in Discord without doing it through your Discord server. I'm highly likely to type in my Discord password into any widget a server gave me. So my Discord server is the same reason the bots. Am I able to verify someone without actually? You can't actually bypass that, can you? Yeah, Discord had the same. So I locked down the Discord when I got attacked by thousands of bots in one stream. So I got not only view botted, but chat spammed at the same time by thousands of bots. Um, and my Discord, yeah, so I'm looking to see if there's an actual setting for that. I don't think adding you as a friend. Oh, hold on. Pass verification. It says you're verified. Huh. Yeah, it says verified. Huh. Hold on. Let me see that and see if it's later. Um, okay. So let's get this done. So yeah, what I'm trying to do is basically have this say, something like iMigration service, whatever. Um, iMigrations provider, whatever. And then in here, just do for each var migration in provider dot get migrations. Yeah, something like that. See, again, look at that logging. That is ridiculous. Error running migration. No, I now this is a background task. So if this fails, it's just going to go silent. Nothing's going to tell you there's a problem. Um, uh, if cancellation is requested, do that. I don't need to log it. I don't need to see that it was doing it. Right? To me, if I need that logging in place, I would rather come back in afterwards and, you know, um, um, I would rather come back in afterwards and, figure that out. I'm just going to put streaming right back on, otherwise I'm going to get distracted. I'll do some research later. It's funny. My wife was like, why do I need to verify my identity to get into your server? I'm like, can't trust anybody these days. um, But yeah, if I need logging, I will come back in afterwards. And if things are misbehaving, I'll debug it first, validate what's going wrong. If it's an error that I can't avoid or it could occur, then I'll log something or I'll trace something. I don't want to do it preemptively. Um, yeah, this is a major combo at work right now. I keep saying we don't need to know that the applications work. No, you don't. It's just noise. And if that goes to something like Datadog, if you've got, right, okay, so logger.log info, right? There you go. It'll help me. It actually wants to do it for me. Come on. There you go. It'll put it all back in for me. There you go. It'll just write. It just lost its mind. So if you just got that everywhere, an error rate is not a signal of things working. No. It's good to know something is you could just log once. Like I just think that's noise. And when that goes to Datadog, and you see all the info, it's just a lot of noise. And then someone's like, "Oh, we're spending too much on Datadog logging." That sort of stuff doesn't necessarily need to be logged out to Datadog. Debug logging like that, as I've come to call it or refer to it as, is just not necessarily useful, or I don't find it useful. I would rather see those logs tell me there's actually something wrong. Morning, Trap, by the way. Danny, hello. Good afternoon to you. Yeah, I just think you've got to be well, yes. It is its own problem, but again, creating noise in the logs and then logging incorrectly. So if someone logs something that should be an exception as information, you miss it. So I'm not saying you shouldn't log. I'm not saying anything of the sort. I'm saying it should be a plan. It should be a strategy of what are we logging? Why are we logging it? What do we, it's the same, to me, it's the same as comments, right? It should be understood why we're doing something and where it's useful. How do we identify it? Like, make the most out of it. I think we just kind of feel this, cover all, log everything. Like, I'm not, if the application throws up, that exception should make it to my tooling, right? It should show, I should be able to identify there was a problem. And even with this, if it fails silently because it's running as a background service, it will still show me a problem. That shouldn't be a log. It should be a set of metrics. Absolutely, file system errors are a major pain to track down. I find it useful for background processes and checkpoints, but when we have a Kibana for our logs, so they're closer and pump any errors to the global cluster. Yeah. The problem in my company had they made a filter so only warnings and errors go to Datadog now. Yeah. Yeah. But I think, again, I don't think it should be a blanket log everything. It shouldn't be a, what if. I prefer to kind of find the find a lot of problems through development. And also the code design will help you with that. Yeah. So not a fan of noise. Also I've spent I spent years working with PHP where I didn't know Xdebug existed and didn't know how to use those tools. So my debugging involved lots of log statements, as many of us will have gone through, console logging or file rating. I'm here. This is happening. This variable set this value. Ideally, you have lots of logs and lots of control how to log and where. There are also techniques to limit noise and other common issues. You can hold a log ring buffer and see if other errors occur and only occur public if something else happens in a short time or similar. But it is a strategy. It's part of your design, right? It's part of how you deal with those things. And that's again, effective for me is not effective for you potentially, or vice versa. How I handle debugging, how I work with that code. And I think it's like everything else, it should be thought out. It should not necessarily just be done because it's easy to dump everything. But it can be good to see that the number of metrics getting to step 5 are half the number of metrics getting to step 4. Yeah. So yeah, what I'm trying to end up with is this, where I don't need to change this if I add a new module. And again, this project is not this project will go as long as as I get to figure out the deployment piece of Liquid Sky again, right? That as soon as I get back on focus there and stop being frustrated with it, I will return to my normal development cycle. Developers are stream will continue on Friday. But so I'm not invested in getting this to a certain point. I'm just trying to explore ideas here about how I might do some of these things, because I think it's useful to do this once in a while. So this is a palate cleanser application, but I think it's useful to explore different ways of doing things and understand how you might do something differently if you had the chance again. Like going through this, I'd still develop Liquid Sky the way I developed it. I think it's right. I think I'm comfortable with that development. So yeah. I work in a high reliability space where you don't get to just log into production. It requires a bunch of work to release, and debugging prod is not fun, so logs are absolutely critical. Right. Yeah. Spikes are where stress goes to dissipate. And so two sets of logs with the same log ID, because the log ID is just a date time now to Unix million. I mean, log ID and all, just isn't that just what do I have? Oh, it's my stream. I have a YouTube indicator on my phone. But you're not using it for tracing. Write your own logger, they said. Yeah. So yeah, what I want to do is migrations. I'm gonna just call it runner for right a second. Hello, Loki. Hello. You okay, bud? Hello, my friend. How you doing? What's the matter? You don't like the floor anymore? We're having a doggy break. Hey, bud. You okay? You can't come and sit up on me, no. All right. No. Uh feeling a little salty today, Mojo. Yeah. He's leaning on my right arm, so I can't actually move my mouse. Give him some time. Okay, buddy? Um, Starting a project in 2019 with 4.6 was a choice. Are you trying to climb up? Is that what your plan is? Is your plan to come and sit on me? Is that your plan? You're not feeling the floor? Okay. Good boy. His sister's lying across their entire bed. Just go and lay on Taylor. Go on, bud. Um, People don't always. Well, research is hard, right? The right answer. What is the right answer? Again, the logging conversation, right? What is the correct way of doing it? And we're going to have different opinions, different experiences, different approaches to those things. Well, what's the right way? Well, the right way is the most effective way for you. When someone decides to pick something up, they had a tool, they didn't know it was the wrong or out of date tool, and they used it. And doesn't excuse it. Like the way the code ended up, it's a miracle it runs. But yeah. So what I'm thinking here is, do I want IDB context factory? Can I get away with this? Factory. So these things will include, and then if I have public async task, yeah, something like that. Because if you look at what we're doing over in here, this creates a strategy, then it executes the strategy as migrate. This is interesting. So it does that. Context. I'm not sure what the execution strategy really does. So let's just go take a look. In instance of the execution strategy, see connection resiliency and database retries for more information. Connection resiliency. Execution strategy that automatically retries on failures needs to be able to play back each operation and retry a block. So it gives you a retry. Interesting. Create execution strategy. Gotta get ready for work later on. Take care, Mojo. Have a great day. Okay, so you can do, okay, so interesting. Strategy. Okay, so in this case, it's not really gonna give me a lot, but some retryability. Okay. I haven't used strategies before in DB in Entity Framework, so that's an interesting one. So this is my goal, right? So the games module owns its own, destiny, right? Its own, it controls itself. It's not going to need external code to do all those things. That's what I'm going for here. So again, when I start the migration service, I want it to go run the migration, right? And that should know that this migration exists and run that migration. So what we're going to get there is we've got to be able to use dependency injection to get this thing, give it a context factory itself. Yeah, so configuration extensions. So let's do this. This is static. Now Milan's clean architecture example, which supposes modular monolith, gave me this kind of retrospective moment of putting these configurations inside of the actual code itself. So the application will probably have its own setup, so that when I include it in here, it has all its dependencies figured out there. You're not leaving it to the base. Like the API should not be doing that much. The API should be saying, I need to include this thing, and it knows how to configure itself, how to wire itself up. So just trying to, there's a term for that, and I cannot think about it right this second. But yeah. But again, this is a very deliberate effort. I've got to keep this up. I've got to figure out what this looks like, how to make sure this is reusable and maintainable. It's very easy to break the lines and include code in the wrong place. Public static. Interesting. Interesting that you want to do that. Not wrong though, because if I well, apart from the migrations are their own thing. Um, but basically, if I do it that way, so what I've got here is essentially that, right? Still debating whether I want to do host builder there or want to do service collection. I application I host builder. So the problem is adding a dependency on the host builder there is not necessarily what I want to do. Dependency injection, however, is a little easier. The challenge is that is not resolvable there. So you have to pass in high configuration to do it this way. It's funny. This felt bad. Um, I didn't like this idea of, oh no, I've got to give it dependencies. I always feel bad about doing that sort of stuff. And then I started looking through examples of other people like .NET libraries and Aspire, etc. And I saw the same pattern, and I was like, oh, okay, it's not that bad then. It's funny how validating yourself, like saying, hey, what is right is what I feel is right, and then turning around and being like, look at how other people do it. So I pass in our options and make it types ready, the lookups of config in the implementer. So you'd pass in an I options and have a configuration option there, but then it flips it back again where I now need to know about that thing, right? So what I'm thinking of here is, so if you see, watch what happens now. So in here now I can do builder.services.add games infrastructure with builder.configuration, right? I do not need to know about its internals. It can do it. But now also in here, I can go and do app.services.add games infrastructure. Was it add or was it include? Did I use the word include? No, add games infrastructure. Because this should know about its infrastructure. And it's the same method now. And they're both in there now. So it's responsible for itself and not the app, not the thing calling it. Not done it this way before. What to see where when we hit the brick wall. Who cares what they think? Oh, just a raw immutable record, then I don't hide that I need a connection string and config. Yeah. Well, I'm not hiding the fact that I need a connection string. I'm just saying this knows what it's doing, right? Now that also needs to live. Love that. Just for my brain. But with that added, this is also, you don't know that your config is missing a connection string till runtime. You should put an assert at the top that the config string exists. So it throws earlier. I'm just doing my insecurities on you. Hi, Dr. Cox. How you doing? Um, so hold on. I provide migrations. Let's make let's just try this. I can reference shared, that's fine. Shared should have nothing dependent upon it, so that should work. Best thing to do would be options pattern no, then you would have type container holding that piece of config this certain part needs. Then again, I'm too lazy myself to do that. Typed container holding that piece of config. So if this had something specific if this had specific configuration, it still wouldn't inject that. This would be responsible for setting those options. Nice. Passing in an I options of, and that's what you're saying, Mr. Anon, right? Passing in the I options and then making this responsible for figuring out those getting the I options and configuring those I options. So this to me is a self-contained component, right? So if I have configuration options, that's fine, but I'm not going to have them to pass in there. So the configuration is the configuration. Yeah. What I'm thinking right this second is we're going to use some reflection. Or a preference. Yeah. And I'm experimenting with this, right? I have no idea how this is going to work. Application extensions, actually application builder extensions. Sorry. I'm just trying to I like to shift left my configuration so the user of my server startup configure it. Yeah, what I'm gaining in readability there, I'm losing in configurability because the internals of that know how to set it up. But it doesn't mean I can use that same line there and both get added. It's going to be interesting. I'm a Ruby on Rails guy, so you say migrations, and I'm wondering how there can be engineering work to be done here. Not trying to be hated, just thought this was globally solved already. So, I'm not a big fan of entity framework migrations. So, an entity framework migration looks like this. So you have the snapshot, which is what it currently looks like, right? And then the initial, which is here's how to create your tables, etc. I have never seen these be anything other than generated. Now, doing things like migrating data, changing out, like what happens if I delete a table or I delete a column or I, add a column, etc. I've never done entity framework migrations to that level. Apparently it can be done. So with Liquid Sky, I chose to script everything out, right? So everything scripts, which is its own problem. Right? Um, I, I, yeah, I suppose it's just some of my dislikes uh, preventing me from doing things like that. Writing SQL inside of here. I know that's probably the way it's done, but it's still, uh, yeah. So for Liquid Sky, everything's done just as scripts that I run manually right in a second, with the intention of figuring out migrations later. Actually, this all needs to be rolled up into a new release. In Rails, there's a generator that writes the script bulk for you, but you keep all your migrations forever in each one track. And that's how it's working here. Entity framework migrations are doing the same thing, right? So if I add another table now, right? If I add another entity and I say create a migration, the moment I add it into this context, and run the migration, it will create a script for generating that table for me. If I drop a column, it will generate a new migration, and you can see they're dated. And Entity Framework tracks them in a table, which migrations it's run, so you can go up and down the stack of migrations. I just feel that it's a challenge to do migrations like that, and it's very temperamental. If you uh, fail to do a migration, or you do a migration and change something about something, it can become challenging, uh, and I've had that happen on many occasions. So uh, yeah, yeah, it's not like it's uh, um, yeah. So to add, if I added games, if I added a copy, right, uh, here, public int ID, public int game ID, public virtual game, um, public interesting, public date time, date added, date purchased, um, let time pass, then review the table, drop the field, whatever. Yeah. Sorry, I had to mute you. Don't know if the configuration topic is still at hand, but as I've already said, in my opinion, the options pattern would be the cleanest, but it's more hassle than passing in the configuration as a whole. So again, the my context there was this is kind of setting itself up. So if I push in an options pattern, I need to create the model for the option, and then I need to make the application that's consuming that be responsible for doing the build it, add, configure, add options, etc., and then go and get that entity here. Whereas in this instance, what I'm trying to do is make this responsible for its own configuration. So it doesn't necessarily have its own configuration set up before it gets to configuring itself, right? So, and then in here, I'm using the exact same method because my application, the actual monolith, will also add the games module, right? And that will include its dependencies. So I get the point, but it's just avoiding having to make this responsible for setting up that configuration. I know both of them still need the configuration, um, uh, but they don't have to set it up. So that's the only reason I'm doing it that way. I'd be interested in seeing if anyone's got any projects where you've done that. I would be interested to see the differences there. Because again, it's all about the learning, not about the actual. Again, all of this is all about learning. This is not about necessarily achieving this. So, for reference, I do have an existing uh, site. No, all good. Just waiting for that to load. Right. So I do have this site, and it tracks my games collection, right? So I do have a games collection. This allows me to track the games and see the copies of the games I have, and I can also see, you know, apparently, if it wakes up. Oh, it was doing it then. Yeah, I can see the pricing history over time. Um, uh, this is linked to price charting, so it will go out and find, based upon the UPC, etc., give me the estimated pricing. Um, so Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Assassin's Creed Origins. So again, copies versus games, etc. I can do all those things. So this is games. Um, and I can see pricing, etc. So this is the sort of thing I'm trying to build with this particular project. So again, to add a copy, if I go into my context now and I go and do public db set copies, why do I always want to write it that way? Set copy. That's a dangerous keyword, by the way, to a dangerous word to be using, but it is what it is, a copy. And now if I do entity framework call add migration, include copies. It's going to use the application DB context. It's going to use a migration service to start up. That'll have the database. Probably can do it without a build, but we'll do it with the build, and we'll see if that runs. Being that I've changed other things around here, this will be interesting. There you go. So now that migration will be there. So now we've added the copies table there. So migrations work until they don't, though. That's been my experience so far. And getting them, if you get slightly out of whack or it misses a column, it won't pick it up for whatever reason. It's figuring out all the code underneath that prevents that from causing problems. So, what I'm trying to do here again is make this component, this module, and this infrastructure component is the kind of the shared face here, responsible for itself. I'm having a I'm having a thought that maybe I don't need to do this where I have a shared migration service, but if I have a background worker service configurable, that the infrastructure could actually add that worker service itself, and the application when it starts up would run its migration, which means that they're independent entirely. We're going to experiment with that quickly. So what I'm saying there is I don't want to use that migrations. What does it look like? So if we have migration worker service, right? And that's a background service. Is it background? Is it background worker? Add hosted service. No, background service. It is a background service. That's going to need that. Wonder if this can actually work. We'll find out, I guess. So then we're going to create a public delegate. Giving it its own database connection is going to be the challenge there. Task, migration delegate, IDB context, factory. Let's see what happens. And then we inject a migration delegate. And then we do await delegate stopping token. So again, just experimenting here. Basically what I'm going to try and do is if I do services add hosted service and we do provider goes to new return new migration worker service. That works with the delegate that is await async. Bar factory equals provider dot get required. I feel that doing it this way is this approach will, if it works, will be useful, but I feel that it will probably yield some challenges as far as memory management. Why don't you like that? Get required service, delegate type could not be. Why wouldn't that work then? Oh, it would. I just added too many arrows. So we have the factory using var context equals. Oh wait, it wants to help, but it's getting in my way. So in that case, actually, we just don't need to do. We don't need to do that. We just need to do services.add scoped. No, add transient. We're not getting the service scope inside of it, so it's that adding a scope will cause it a problem. And this would be add transient runner. That's that. So in that case, all we need to do is the factory just needs to get the runner. And we just need to do await. Oh, the provider needs to get the runner. Wait, runner dot run migration cancellation token. So doing it that way, it is responsible for starting a service itself which will just run the migration that it determines, which would mean that we don't need that migration service there because it doesn't need to be added. I'm open to being told this is the dumb approach, by the way. If anyone feels this is really not a good way of doing this, that is definitely acceptable. So right now, app host does not have a reference to the service. It just has the project. So if this works, this will actually start. It's going to get that connection string, that switch up connection string, because it's part of the app host. So it's going to provide that connection string available. There we go. Can I add resource aspire postgrid with the name switch because type of resource already exists. Resources names are case insensitive. Add database. But it worked yesterday. With data volume, data bind. Data switch up. Let's go with that. Add database. Can I add resource? Type postgrid with name switch because resource of type application model postgrid. The name already exists. Resource in name the case it's sensitive. um yes. I'm with you. It's just a one challenge at a time, right? And that challenge is understanding how this is actually configuring it, and then I can understand what I'm actually moving out and why I'm doing it and where it should go. Spire again is something that I think as a development tool is very useful. I'm still trying to understand what it means from a deployment perspective, which means I don't know where those things are going to live eventually. Can I add resource of type? Let's do this. We've called the database instance switch up. Switch up DB. Database switch up. DB. DB. Let's see what it does. Oh, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Hold on. Because that is going to be what is that. Even this, like, this is going to cause. I suppose that's why, like Dr. Cox and Mr. Anhorn are kind of saying that shouldn't live in here. This is like now nested down there. That should be a configuration option that comes in so that we don't have, so the application setting it up is what's dictating those things. We'll see. Running unhealthy. It's not in a healthy state. I don't know, like it's correcting itself. It's probably my SOS got a little bit MS style. when I run it's unhealthy. Connection string has not been initialized. That tried to migrate, by the way. That actually tried to run the migration. So that will work. So that the individual modules will be able to run their own migration. If if I had a so the way I make sure that doesn't cause a problem. Wait for Postgre. Postgre, whatever. Remove that data by mount for temporarily. Let's find out. It ran yesterday, so the only thing I changed there was the data directory. So it might be that it expected files to be there or whatever, or it couldn't write to that, which is its own challenge. Oh, you're gonna crash. Ooh. So in that instance, it actually all ran. So it was the data directory that caused me the issue there. Yeah. So why are you not initialized? Factory connections. I dislike this. This is one disadvantage of this way. So if I put that debugger there, because the way that errors, it loses all its context. So even if it hits that an error there, it doesn't have the factory and stuff. It doesn't know it's there. My goodness me, how many times are you going to actually open that tab on different windows? Oh, that's because that one is there. I dragged that one over there. That one goes over there. Friend computer told me. Yeah, I'm still. I don't believe that deployment should be managed from a developer machine. I think that is still a problem for me. So this is because the application DB context. This is your point, Mr. Anhon, right? Validating that exists before we even go in here so that it asserts and throws if this doesn't exist, rather than getting down into there. Right, that was your point before, I believe. Oh, man. I was just getting somewhere as well. So if that connection string exists, right, this will work, which means that I don't need to have this service do anything. Individual components can own their own. If I clean up that piece so it's a more reusable piece, I can just include a migration worker service with the delegate to do its migration. And even that, the migration is pretty much rinse and repeat. Then I can just, well, the next step would be validate. If I change this and I say public, I'm going to deliberately do this. Float price paid. Right? If I do this now, entity framework call add migration, I still can't select. Hold on. Let me validate that that's actually what I'm seeing. This could be messy, but I'm essentially making it kind of everything to itself about it's, and I don't mind this being infrastructure.database. I don't mind having other infrastructure libraries. It doesn't have to be its own thing. So what I'm thinking here is, as I add the migration, I can make it itself its own starter project. That doesn't work. Those others now, because I've added design there, the others become that thing. So add price paid. Let's see what happens. I think it'll error. Doesn't reference entity framework code. Is that a price worth paying? So let's remove it from. Let's remove it from here. I don't want to just sat around doing nothing. I want to validate that. But then if I do add migration, include price paid. Notice my consistent and meaningful naming. If I okay that, no. So that will be the only downside, right? Because then the migration service would work, but then I'd have to reference all these manually. Whereas if I have it self-contained and have it start its own service when it starts up, it can run its migration as needed. So pros and cons. And a large truck just decided to drive slowly up the street. But anyway, that is going to be me, I'm afraid. If you like this .NET content, don't forget that One Lion is also a .NET streamer. He is a fantastic streamer. Streams Wednesdays through Fridays. Fridays is community day. But on Wednesdays and Thursdays, he does stream his work projects, showing, how he builds Blazor and other application stuff, and maintaining an existing and in some cases aging application structure and moving it forward and continue working with it. So it's very fascinating to watch. I think it's always aging. Yeah, I mean, everything's aging, right? Once it's released, but you do have, you've got an older application stack and newer stuff, and you're adding more stuff in there. So, yeah. But anyway, that'll be me for today, unfortunately. We're going to go Ray Maybe. I like Ray Maybe. Maybe's stream is a little bit different to mine, but Maybe is an awesome streamer, built his Barely Fit app and has released it recently. I highly recommend checking it out. It's a really good app if you are interested in fitness tracking. But yeah, we're going to go Ray Maybe. I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday, yes. So I'll do more of this tomorrow. Research a little bit more on this stuff, see what we land on. And again, I'm just experimenting. I'm trying to build an application that is done in a different way than I would do before. So I've got a different perspective if I come to design something new in the future. How would I approach it? What would I build? How do I get over some of these humps? And I think that's useful sometimes. While I continue to work on the deployment piece in the background. As always, if you have any questions, thoughts, opinions that you want to share off stream, the Discord is always there to join in. But let's go, Ray. Maybe I will see you again tomorrow. Thank you for joining me. Take care. I'm going to remember to press the end button. I always forget. But yeah. Thanks for the amazing. Thank you for being amazing. I appreciate you. Dan, hello, and have a great day. Thank you all. Take care. Bye.